Hi, my name is Beatriz Hausner, and I am going to say a few words about She Who Lies Above. This is my third book with Book Hug Press, and it is being released this fall on November the 7th. That's 2023. She Who Lies Above is a book of verse and prose poems built around the figure of Hypatia, who was a Neoplatonist philosopher and mathematician, and lived in Alexandria around at the cusp of the with the third and fourth century meet. So in the early days of Byzantium. Most of what we know about Hypatia can be gleaned from the letters or letter fragments that a friend and former student of hers by the name of Synesius wrote to her. I was introduced to the letters of Synesius about 10 years ago by a friend, and it happened to be at a time when I was participating in a poetry festival in Trois-Rivières. It's a very wonderful festival, and so Trois-Rivières, for those of you who don't know Canada, is set on the shores of the St. Lawrence Causeway. As I was watching the immensity of those flowing waters, it occurred to me that Trois-Rivières could very well stand for Alexandria. So I thought, why not place this whole concept of Hypatia and Synesius in a contemporary kind of place, a space that resembled what in my mind was Alexandria. And of course, I studied Alexandria in that period and before and so forth. In any case, the idea was to invent the letters of Hypatia to Synesius, since they didn't exist. The entirety of this book is written around the notion of a relationship that develops through this correspondence between the two who in a way are also lovers. And so the book is in a way also a book of love poetry. Of course, I invented this relationship as well. The whole is in fact an exploration of my own experience as a poet and as a librarian, which is what I was until very recently. And in a way, what I wanted to express was my concerns and my ideas around the notion of the development of knowledge, the preservation of knowledge, and the notion that knowledge is being disposed of. And that is a huge concern for me, and it will be a concern for me until this changes, which is probably not going to happen before my lifetime is over. In any case, being a surrealist, I know for a fact that the entirety of reality is a continuum of associations among images that exist, images and ideas that we inherit, images and ideas that we create as we merge reverie, dream, and wakefulness, which are the states that are constantly at work every day, every 24 hours. In this manner, my book is an expression of living and being in a state of surreality, or aspiring to that state of surreality which we exist in which André Breton called le point sublime. In other words, a kind of sublime point that we all aspire to, I think we all aspire to be in. It doesn't have to be a spiritual state, it can be a heightened state of some sort, where there's a sense that you are more complete. In literary terms, She Who Lies Above is the result of an exploration of writing as a means of constructing mental states, where poetic diction can clearly express the many voices that each one of us has inside themselves. In my case, these are the many voices that I myself speak in and speak to myself in and express myself in with. I do this by merging genres, in which in this book it's very clear that there are several genres. There is poetry, both in verse and in prose poetry. There is a kind of fiction as well, which is primarily the introduction to the concept of this book, always in a kind of meditative way as well. And there is a kind of prose essay thing that I explore and sort of experiment with, which I first tried in an earlier book that I also published with Book Hug called Enter the Raccoon. The idea is to create a kind of very layered effect where all these things are working together all at once. In this way, I think I have created a space, a mental space, where Hypatia and Synesius meet and come alive with characters from the past, historical characters as well as characters that I myself have invented or are composites of people that I know or are important in my own life. Also, for me, what is very important in this book is the exploration of the whole notion of libraries. Because the first library was the Library of Alexandria, and it was the first place where we came to the idea or the concept that knowledge could be preserved, classified, organized, and made available to people and preserved in this way, I wanted to connect that to our current and to our modern libraries themselves, where there are equivalents to the earliest classificationists, is how we call them, the classifiers, the people who first organized books and knowledge. For example, Callimachus, who was the first bibliographer and was also he was an extraordinary poet. He excelled in a form called the elegy. In any case, I found that Callimachus, in a way, was very similar in concept to a 20th century librarian by the name of Ranganathan. He was an Indian librarian, and he was part of a movement called the Barefoot Librarians. Well, that's another, kind of an anecdote. But in any case, weaving through the whole book is the theme of alchemy and how alchemy can serve as a metaphor for not just creativity, but the idea that creativity and knowledge and deep thinking are at work in order to extract meaning. So what the alchemists explored in their earliest times, when this became a kind of parallel science mostly in the Middle Ages, is this whole concept that knowledge can be created out of disparate elements that occur in our world, elements that are not, that, in other words, gold can be extracted from base chemicals or elements. So that's woven through the whole book, and I see it as a unifying thread. The whole of the book is told by an omniscient narrator, a kind of alter ego or a kind of double of mine by the name of Bettina Ungaro. She, like me, is a librarian by day and a poet by night, out of necessity. So that's about the book. The book itself, She Who Lies Above, will be on sale starting on November the 7th. Before that, you can pre-order it from bookhugpress.ca, from your independent bookstore nearest you, or you can talk to your local librarian to see if they can order it as well. In this way, you can support independent publishers, independent bookstores, and libraries. Go ahead and order She Who Lies Above.